You know, it is pretty nifty when you can fill up the entire rack and be on par with the show in question. So, with all the new additions to the Big Ten, thank you very much, Tony Petiti, Kevin Warren. Thank you so much, and to others, because everyone that has entered the Big Ten Conference for 2024, we've got a helmet for. So we stack them all up together. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, and it is the Big Ten live show, in fact, and we appreciate all of you being here to talk Big Ten football for the next 2 hours with us. So much to get to. I typically like to go through all the teams in the Big Ten and do a exhaustive search for hours and hours and hours and hours for each Big Ten team, especially Rutgers and Indiana. Those are the ones that I focus on first, and then try to find the news of the day, the news of the week, and then, of course, present to you. And we will take your calls here in the next few minutes and hopefully have some guests stop by as well here at the Voice of College Football. Again, it's the Big Ten live show every Friday for all of you in our Voice of College Football community. Every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, followed by a Big Ten doubleheader of sorts, because we hand it off then to Tim Prangley and Matt Zemek over on the USC channel here at the Voice of College Football, a Big Ten member. Don't forget, for the USC call-in show. So Big Ten fans, even if you root for, I picked on them already, I might as well again, Rutgers, Indiana, Purdue, whoever, even if you root for one of those schools, guess what? You are still in the in crowd. Feel good about that. Maybe you're not your team, but your conference. You are in the in crowd. You're one of the cool kids, because we saw another indication today coming out in college football about the Big Ten and the SEC separation from everyone else. We saw an indication of that. So hopefully you joined us for our Thursday live stream. We had Tony Altamore here, Tide Guy, and also Genetics 56, Big Ten information channel there on Twitter, and had a lot of information, a lot of facts, a lot of metrics, also a lot of points to make about where this is all headed in college football regarding the Big Ten, first and foremost. Also, of course, Florida State's making the most noise right now, and they want to join the SEC or the Big Ten, depending on who you talk to. But if you talk to the people in the know, most affiliated with the school and have their finger on the pulse, it's the Big Ten. They love the academics, and therefore it's a Big Ten lean for Florida State. Is it a Big Ten lean for Florida State? It's a Florida State lean toward the Big Ten. We believe that it is. So again, expect things to continue to unfold as the Florida State situation with the ACC gets nastier and nastier and nastier. Check out our Florida State live stream from Wednesday night. And then also the follow-up we had last night as we started the live stream with those guys. It focused on Florida State first and foremost, because they're the school at the forefront of all this right now, because they're the ones with the most clout, and they are definitely the loudest about kicking and screaming and getting out of the ACC. And they lowered a boom on the ACC this week with a 59-page lawsuit. And so we won't go into that here because this is a Big Ten football show, but it uncovers yet another card that Florida State has to play against the ACC to make the ACC look even worse, in not negotiating in good faith in regards to the best interests of Florida State and the rest of the ACC. So a lot is there. So Florida State is going to continue, I believe, to wield these cards until the ACC says, we'll settle. We'll settle. We still want a lot of money out of you, but we'll settle. Probably for about $150 million plus. All right. Off the heels of what we presented last night, and we appreciate once again Big Ten Information Genetics 56, Tony Altimore here to support, and of course Tide Guy from the SEC side, because this involves the SEC as well. So off the heels of our conversation last night and everything that was presented, did you see the news that came out today? Now, I don't know what email list I'm on, but well before this came out that I could find it anywhere on any of the major media sites. So, for example, I've got ESPN up right now. This was at 1:54 p.m. Eastern time that this was posted by Heather Dinich and ESPN. So 2 o'clock this afternoon, East Coast time. I had an email coming in from the SEC office at 9 or 9:30 this morning concerning this situation. And oh man, did it flow perfectly from what we talked about last night, went right into this announcement today. We could not have planned this any better. So if you have yet to hear, I did post a video earlier today because once the news was out there, I did not get on it as soon as I knew about it because I had other obligations and was not home until sometime this afternoon. So by the time I jumped on it, it was out there. But the Big Ten and the SEC have formed an advisory group, as the states right here in the title of the ESPN article, as conference bonds tighten. Well, again, I read the entire statement today. Check out the video, and then gave my take on what a number of these statements mean. So the Big Ten and the SEC have formed a joint advisory group of university presidents, chancellors, athletic directors, the heavy hitters, the guys, and the women as well, who make the decisions to address the significant challenges facing college athletics. The significant challenges facing college athletics. Fill it in. NIL, transfer portal. And the discrepancies between revenue intake and distribution. That's what we're looking at right there. And as more people filter in, thank you so much for joining us for the Voice of College Football, the Big Ten live show that we present each and every Friday, 7 to 9 Eastern time. May have some guests stopping by. And again, we will take your calls here in just a few minutes. Okay. I should probably pull up the original statement because I don't want to read through what ESPN has because I've got my own thoughts about what this is. And again, check out the video that we posted earlier today. I'm going to go to the original release. Again, it's the Big Ten and the SEC Advisory Board. Yes, so I got this notice from the SEC office that states, so I'm not going to read the whole statement. It's not that long, but I read it in the video. Check it out. So this is what stands out to me. Quote, significant challenges facing college athletics. Okay. So those are the things we just mentioned. These challenges. Okay. And then they mention all the things that are going on in college athletics today, dealing with these things, the upheaval that is going on because of NIL, transfer portal, unfair or unequal revenue distribution. They mentioned court decisions, pending litigation. Look at just here in the last couple of weeks, after all this time has elapsed in which NIL has been part of the fabric of college athletics. It's only been in the last few weeks that now the NCAA is investigating and also handed down a penalty for Florida State, University of Florida, Tennessee. Complex governance proposals compel the two conferences to take a leadership role in developing solutions. These two conferences know what's going on. They know where they stand. Was this a joint effort in terms of an advisory group that involved the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12? The MAC, the Sun Belt, etc., Mountain West, Conference USA, the American Conference? No. Did it even include the Big 12 and the ACC? No. We've seen in the past where, at the time, the 5 major conferences came together with initiatives like this. And even in the show of solidarity, the show of equality, we knew who was running the deal, who was driving the ship. Now, they don't even want to put up a front here. It's simply the SEC and the Big Ten. So the advisory group will engage with other constituencies as necessary. I love that term right there. What that says to me is we will make our own decisions. We'll consult with other constituencies if necessary, as necessary, including consultation with student athletes, other key leadership groups from within both conferences. Okay. Tony Petitti made a statement, basically said that these two conferences have substantial investment in the NCAA. Now, this is the only part in here that I'm going to kind of catch them to say, we'll see how long there's an investment in the NCAA. And there's no question that the voices of our two conferences are integral to governance and other reform. He mentioned, Tony Petitti, we recognize the similarity in our circumstances. I love that part. What's that telling you? It's telling us we too have similarities. We are the SEC and the Big Ten. The two of us have similarities. We have the power. We've got the name brands. We've got the facilities. We've got the money. We've got the TV ratings. We are the two that run the sport. Because we didn't include these other conferences, as well as the urgency to address the common challenges we face. See, we face common challenges. We're the only two getting together, the SEC and the Big Ten. We face common challenges. These challenges are only common to us, not to them. Actually, it's the other two conferences that have the challenges more so than, of course. There are similar cultural and social impacts on our student athletes, institutions, communities because of new collegiate athletics environments. So Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, is talking about that. And again, it's just more about NIL, transfer portal, that. The advisory group will have no authority to act independently, will only serve as a consulting body. That's at least where it starts. There we go. So the SEC and the Big Ten get together on that. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. So here's the deal, folks. And I appreciate everyone who's using the Amazon link. And you could probably tell others, guess what? It's just like when I was using whatever link I was using before. Please use the Amazon link. It's in the description section of this video and all the videos. So thank you for that. We do have an SEC channel and a Big 12 channel. In fact, tonight, there is, I can't keep track of them. We got a Big 12 show going on tonight, or is that West Virginia Live? 8 o'clock Eastern time. But it will be on the Big 12 channel. So if you get bored of me after an hour, another 45 minutes, check out Joey over on the West Virginia and the Big 12 channels. And then let's see. Yes, directly after our show, boom, you can roll it right into the USC call-in show. And we will take calls here. So I'm excited about this. Maybe nobody else is, in terms of our content that we're delivering here at the Voice of College Football. Again, yesterday, tremendous live stream concerning this situation we're talking about and alluding to right now, which this is just a small slice of this. And then we're also excited about posted a video. I just thought, you know what? Let's slice it up from the NFL coaching standpoint as a head coach versus the college standpoint. This is how I see it. This is what I would choose to do. And I would invite your comments and your take on it. NFL head coaches versus college head coaches. Who's got it better? Who's got it worse? And what are the differences? Check it out. Then also, I posted a video the other day. Michigan fans, you should be so proud of me. I will take multiple pats on the back. Thank you, Michigan fans, for watching. Get this video out there. So I am offering up, before we add Tim here, that if you would like to see me match up whatever two programs. So 2 programs are your choice. This week I did Ohio State, Michigan, and I did Florida State, Miami. Now, keep in mind, it's for whatever time frame you want to see that breakdown. So, Michigan fans, I did a breakdown of Ohio State, Michigan during the only time frame that I could make you look good besides 1869, and that was 2021. So I took the last 3 football seasons and I matched up Ohio State and Michigan. So check it out. And then I did the same thing with Florida State, Miami. Check out those videos. They're over on the Florida State, Miami channels. We matched up Florida State, Miami for the entirety of the 21st century. So I'm talking winning percentage, conference winning percentage, national championships, conference championships. I'm talking AP rankings in the top 5, the top 10, the top 25. Talking about all Americans. I'm talking about major award winners, Heisman trophies, all the major position awards. I'm talking about, what else did I get into? NFL draft selections, first round selections. So we weighed Florida State, Miami. So make your request. Tell me what 2 programs and what time frame. So I got a couple requests. We will fulfill those. And as long as you want to see those, I think it's a fun little exercise and you can make your program look good. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Big Ten Live show. Tim's here. Tim, what's going on tonight?
That's Friday. So I'm very happy, man. It's time for everyone to kick back, relax, and talk a little Big Ten football.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know how much of that you heard, but for the first, 10 minutes or so, plus, wow, it's 24 after. So I have been rambling on for quite some time about this advisory group that was formed today. Don't expect you to know. I know you've been working your day job and working hard and all that other business, but the SEC and the Big Ten announced today that they have formed an advisory group. And when you really read through this and read between the lines, man, it really flows well with, we did a live stream last night. We had our guy, Tony Altimore, on here. We had Tide Guy, and then we had Big Ten information guy, Genetics 56, laying out all the various scenarios with Florida State wanting to come into the Big Ten and all the various scenarios. And we laid it out there. And our Big Ten information guys believes this is headed toward an official breaking off of the Power 2. Not just, hey, we make more money and we're worth more and we'll continue to play with you, but a breaking off of the Power 2. And then, boom, I look at my email this morning. I got a press release from the SEC that says the Big Ten and the SEC have formed an advisory committee. Well, this is not, anything official or anything that's going to change the landscape of college football. But I just think this is the next step here. They say we're going to take on, with recent court decisions, pending litigation, state laws, influx, all these things. We see ourselves, as you read between the lines, as the 2 that are leading college football, basically. And, we see our commonalities. So read between the lines. We're the 2 that run the sport and are different from everyone else. We see our commonalities, i.e. we didn't invite the ACC and the Big 12 as part of this. And you just read through the whole thing and it just jumps out and it just flows right and extends the conversation we were having last night and everything that we discussed. So it's interesting.
Just seems like everything's been really moved up. I think we all knew this was coming, but now it seems like it's happening a lot faster with the Florida State and the other news that's out there. That's going to happen a lot faster than we anticipated.
Yeah, and you talk about Florida State, boy. A couple days ago, man, they laid another hammer down on the ACC. Came at them with another lawsuit. Here's 59 pages that basically say that you did not deal in good faith. You had other dealings going on, and you were not protecting and doing your best to benefit the universities that are in the membership, and you were giving favoritism to your commissioner's son and all this other business. Wow, it just looks like Florida State just keeps playing another card, waiting for, okay, we're going to keep bringing stuff to light until you say, okay, uncle, and we can settle.
I'm just, again, this whole situation that we have with college football, and you know me, Mark, I wouldn't say I'm a traditionalist, but I'm certainly not for it becoming NFL light. I just hope that we are able to keep some aspects of what we grew up with, and the bowl system pretty much gone. The rules, the clock rules as we knew it that separated us from the NFL, pretty much gone. And now with money coming into football, the ability of players just to leave without any recourse. I know it's a little to some people, but for a lot of us old school guys, the original signing day, moving the signing day up, they've changed so much about the calendar, the sport, the flavor of what we love, that it's not resembling a lot of what we were used to. And I think that the sport will survive. It may even thrive. Who knows, right? It's just, my fear is, and it goes back to in my 20s when I was trying to get my buddy to watch news. He was an NFL guy. I kept saying, come on, watch some college football with me. And he kept saying to me, why would I watch an inferior product? Because if you don't have that ingrained in you, that you're like an Alabama fan, or you're an Ohio State fan, you're a Michigan fan, you're a Purdue fan. If you don't have that inside you to watch it, why not watch where the actual cornerbacks can actually keep up with the receivers, where the linebackers can keep up with the tight ends, in most cases. And that was his biggest point. He said, college football, the receivers are wide open. Why do I want to watch an inferior product? And so I'm hoping that the presidents of the universities realize that eventually this cash cow might die if you make it into NFL light, because it certainly will, I think.
So there's always been a number of things that I have attached to college football to give it a advantage in terms of sentimentality, emotion, attachment over the NFL. One is regionality. So that's being destroyed. Regionality. Yep. If you're on the West Coast, you got pride for West Coast football, man. We produce quarterbacks and speed, and we were the first ones to open up the playbook and open up and speed and space and do different things. And Bill Walsh, and look at our legacy, look at our heritage of the players and the coaches that we've produced. It's different than everybody else. The Big Ten, Midwest football, all the things that go along with being, from the Midwest. You go to the South, SEC. There's a banding together of this is, and it extends beyond the field to just the the food you eat at the tailgate, the music you listen to, just kind of the values, the way of life, all of that. What used to be way back, the Southwest Conference that's morphed into the Big 12 is different. Well, they're not different when you got Rutgers and Nebraska and UCLA playing in the same conference, and every other example we could give. So that's one thing that's been torn down, the regionality. Now, a lot of people believe that it's going to become so extreme that it's going to get broken down again, and we'll be back to where we started. The other thing, Tim, that I have always said for me is a huge part of college football, and why I don't want to say I do today favor it over the NFL, but I am a huge NFL fan, or was in the past. So, but what made it different and why Saturday football is, regardless of how much you value or think that there's an intense rivalry in the NFL, the Cowboys and the Redskins, the Bears and the Packers, You could have one of your favorite players playing for your rival the next year. Happen all the time. You got free agency, you got trades, you got everything. The one thing you could count on in college football, except for the rare transfer, was Reggie Bush is always going to be a USC Trojan. Charles White is always going to be a USC Trojan. That's all of those heroes from the past, those great players played for one team. And we could give a zillion examples, and there's a source of pride for those of you who like to watch Sunday and Monday Night Football in the NFL, and they read off the schools and the players give what school they went to. Well, we've arrived at a place, and certainly 5 years from now, we're going to be hardly able to differentiate any players and say, he only played at USC. He only played at Michigan. He only played at Texas Tech, wherever. And that was always something like, you could always say, my guys were always my guys. They were never anybody else's guys. And that's being lost. So it's really those two things. And then just, the band and the cheerleaders, the pageantry, just the tradition, how it's rooted ingrained in our culture that goes beyond just kind of that corporate look of what the NFL is being lost. And just the thought that, and I know players have been being paid forever and given preferential treatment and all that, but still, let's understand that hardly any of these guys move on to the NFL, that there was still something pure about, they get scholarships, they go to class, they take exams, they have to do all these things that make them college students. And we're losing all that.
Yeah. And the pride, and that's my school. And a lot of the advantages also, a lot of the innate advantages that have been around for certain schools for a long time, that they're now are getting mitigated. For a long time, you could recruit against the Pac-12 school saying, well, that's fine, but no one's going to watch your games. For a long time, you could say, well, come to the University of Michigan and we'll give you a great education. Come to USC, come to Ohio State for, I don't know, what do you guys have over there, Mark? I'm just kidding. Come to the schools, for innate reasons, not just that we're a football brand. And now, as we get farther and farther away from universities and turning these into football factories, they're truly going to become football factories.
All right, Tim, if you're ready to fire up the phone lines, we will do that. And I certainly have plenty to talk about in between the calls, but we want to hear from all of you concerning anything, not necessarily this topic, anything. If you want to talk about the Purdue offensive line, we will talk about anything concerning Big Ten football with all of you.
Yep, phone lines up.
There we go, folks. It's on the ticker below. 888-997-4539. Give us a call. Let's talk some Big Ten football. There's 18 teams to talk about, so plenty to talk about. And again, I have scoured the news today and throughout the last few days, so there's plenty to talk about here, including a Michigan transfer portal that is non-existent. So not a lot to talk about, although Michigan has made a few moves as we await this first call. Kirk Campbell has been promoted from 2 years ago, offensive analyst. Then he becomes quarterbacks coach last year. And then, boom, he's the offensive coordinator, replacing Sharon Moore, who's obviously the head man. So Kirk Campbell, former Penn Stater and on the staff at Old Dominion as an analyst. That's a pretty good rise to through the coaching ranks there. When you're an analyst, small school, boom, Penn State to Michigan. And 2 years after being an analyst, you're an OC at one of the top 5 to 10 programs in college football. Not bad. Also, with Jay Harbaugh moving on, they named J.B. Brown as the special teams coordinator. That's at Michigan. And Tim, we will find out this year if there's any hope for an Iowa offense, because Brian Ferentz finally, after 7 years of having, bottom 3 offenses in college football, finally given the heave-ho. So they hired an offensive coordinator at Iowa. Why it took them so long? I would think that most people would figure, hey, I can be a hero here. if we have the 110th offense in the country, we've just moved up 25 spots. I can be a hero here, but it took forever for Iowa to find an OC, and some people believe that's because Kirk Ferentz is so controlling of the offense and not, wanting somebody. And he even, if you read between the lines, every time he's been asked about this OC situation, has talked about it's got to be the right fit. He's got to blend in with what we do. He's got to be able to fit what we do, meaning he's got to run the offense I want him to run, and he's got to be conservative. We don't want anybody pushing the envelope, challenging me. So they come up with Tim Lester, who was the head coach at Western Michigan, did a nice job there, had a winning record in the MAC. Then he went to Green Bay as an analyst for 1 year, and he's the guy at Iowa. And we checked out his offensive numbers at Western Michigan on our Iowa show, and he did a nice job there. They had really good offenses up until his last season there. So maybe there's hope. All right, folks, I am ready to roll. 888-997-4539.
Yeah, you got your first call, Mark. So caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Dave from Evansville, Indiana.
You cut out there. Did you say Dave from Indiana?
Yeah, David from Evansville, Indiana.
Oh,
David, how you doing?
Is that better?
Perfect.
Fine, thank you. Mark, I started watching your show about, last year, and I just been, I enjoy it. I'm glad. Thanks for all your dedication to the sport, bro. I keep watching it. I just wanted to throw something in with Michigan. So I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not happy as hell that we finally got our first championship since '97. I just don't understand. I guess I always thought I just want to tackle one point, and I just don't understand why the conferences, traditional conferences, can't schedule like just opposing conference games mid-season and give it more of a, instead of just totally selling out our conference, why can't we just play Michigan, Washington in beginning in November? Let's get a kind of roadmap from that instead of just throwing it all out of whack. It's like, I don't know, I guess I look at them like, man, it's what, 10 p.m. game here would be, or 7 p.m. kickoff over there would be 10 over here. I mean, I like big Pac-12 after dark, but I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you, David.
Yeah, I just want to know what.
So you would like to see some non-conference games sprinkled into the schedule later in the season?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Totally. Just to get I feel like that'd give us a good feel of, where some teams are. I mean, my gosh, instead of all the speculating, oh my gosh, can Ohio State beat frickin', SC in, early November? Let's get it on the field and find out so we get a true, some true good rankings and still keep some of this, I don't know, traditionality of the old, old college football. I'm 48 years old, so like.
Yeah, you're right in our window, Dave. You're right in our window. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, Dave, actually,
okay,
the tradition of college football is to play those non-conference games. If you want to take a look at schedules from 40 years ago, you're looking at almost exclusively non-conference game, whether it's 3 or 4 right out of the gate, and then everybody plays their conference schedule. There's actually more mixing of the non-conference games later in the season. Plus, Dave, you're a Big Ten fan. So the Big Ten has been more stern about playing non-conference games early and then getting them out of the way and going right into the conference schedule. Some of the other conferences, you'll see ACC teams more than the other conferences, a little bit with the Big 12, playing non-conference games all over the place. So there's a little bit more of that in
Yeah.
other conferences. So you would like to see the best teams in the Big Ten match up against really good non-conference teams like the first week of November to see, okay, well, we got 8 games in. Let's see how good Ohio State really is. Again, well, let's see them play Texas, or let's see Michigan play Florida State.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
But in terms of the
I don't know.
time,
I just
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yep.
Just to play off one other thing that you were saying, and I just want to make sure I'm getting your point here. You're also concerned about, because the Big Ten expanding to the West Coast, about the time of the games. Well, first off, you should be a lot less concerned as a Michigan fan than Purdue fans, Rutgers fans, Indiana fans, because you're going to get prime network territory almost all the time. Not all the time, but more so than just about anybody else. So there's going to be less of that for you.
Hey.
Don't worry about playing Washington at 10 o'clock at night Eastern time. Like that's too good of a matchup.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, I go real quick. I've been a fan since the Rich Rod days, okay? So I don't take anything for granted, man. It's like, I know that could be, this could go real down on the doorstep real quick too, man, you know?
Well, it has. Yes. That was a dark dark days for Michigan football. Yes. Anybody out there that's
Anyway, man,
a
I
little
really
bit younger?
appreciate you calling me.
Well, we appreciate the phone call. Anything else for us, Dave?
No, thank you. You guys are doing great, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thanks,
calling.
Dave.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, some Michigan fans out there, you may not be aware, 3-9 was a part of your past here in the last 12 or 15 years, and they lost to Toledo. So it can happen.
So, Mark, with this Big Two you're talking about, are they talking about also working out a scheduling between the two teams? And what exactly is the end game of it? Are they going to try to form something where they're kind of pushing the other leagues out? I mean, you said that. Well, I'm curious of what you meant, that the depth that they're actually going to go to.
Well, so as soon as this was presented, I had the same question as you, because it's one thing to say there's going to be a separation, but it's just going to be obvious to everyone, versus there's technically, like organizationally, a separation. And the feedback from our guys was yes, that there's going to be a break from the NCAA for those two conferences. And now this is not just the 18 teams in the Big Ten and the 16 in the SEC. This is going to be, we're going to grab who we want left, and then we're going to take off, because as you well know, because I was being asked this a lot last night, you know, how many seats are there at the table? And my answer was, well, there's no specific number of seats at the table, like 48 or 52. It has to do with the value of that particular program, and whether the networks can say, okay, once we add that program, there is still value, that once we cut the pie, redistribute the pie, there's still more money because they bring more value, versus, no, we take you on, you're basically kind of dead weight, and we're going to have to split money in more directions. So no, you're not worth it. And that's kind of where the threshold is. Wherever that lies, with a Louisville, with an NC State, they're kind of in that, things could get a little precarious for those programs, and it doesn't look good for the Wake Forests of the world.
Again, we had this conversation on a bunch of shows last year when we kind of started talking about where it was heading and the consolidation of the sport into a smaller amount of teams. But what people have to realize is that what makes this sport such a money maker is not all the Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia fans. It's every fan. It's the San Jose State fan collectively. All those smaller G5 schools, all the smaller P5 schools that are out there. It's not like they just watch their team. When you disenfranchise a huge portion of this population, what will be their motivation to watch Big Ten and SEC football when they have the NFL and then their local team playing in whatever iteration of the, again, now we're gonna have a bigger island of misfit toys. We're like, well, you didn't fit in with us, so we're gonna leave you off the table. You're not an Ohio State, you're not Penn State, you're not a USC, you're not a Florida State. You're gonna go on to the side. What's gonna happen to all those fans and all that money they generated? Clearly, there's smarter people than me out there in the TV industry that are realizing that they're cutting out huge markets in this.
I agree with you. Let's take the Big 12. I think they're the best example because when you bring up San Jose State, I think it depends on the individual San Jose State fan because some of them are, they're big football fans. They'll watch any game. They watch the Big Ten. They watch the ACC, whatever. Then there's San Jose State fans that are just, I'm watching the Mountain West and I could care less about that big time football because we don't play in it. But the Big 12 is the Big 12. And regardless of how it's become watered down, very competitive, but watered down from a championship standpoint versus the Big Ten and the SEC, there's still a thought from a Oklahoma State fan, a Kansas State fan, a TCU fan that we're in this. We are a player in this. Sure, those two conferences make the money and all that, but we're connected to that. We have a chance. We're still part of the upper crust. We're connected. But if you take out that whole middle part of the country and go do something else, yeah.
Yeah. And the conversation, maybe San Jose State was a bad example, but the conversation we're having is there's great fans up in, let's say, the Palouse up in Washington State.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to all those fans? They're going to be, screw it. You know what? I'm just going to start watching NBA basketball, or I'm just going to start, I'm going to go back to, and I'll watch my baseball team instead. I'm not going to put my time and money into something because even those guys, they watch conference championship games. They watch national championship games. They definitely would have watched the tournament. And so they're building us towards this tournament. But I think they are. I mean, if you get rid of these great, because these are, there's great fan bases in some of these smaller schools that support all of college football. And as you weed it away, and as we talked about earlier in the opening, when you talk about regionality, they're changing the clock rules, they're changing everything about the sport to make it NFL. I think that you're going to see more and more fans say, screw this, I'm going to watch something else. Because they're sports fans at the end of the day. And if they get disenfranchised completely and disrespected to that level, they are going to throw them out.
Exactly. And like we talked about at the outset of the conversation, if you strip away everything that's unique about the sport you love and there's a better version of it, then why continue to watch that?
Yeah,
absolutely. Don't like it. The other point that was made last night, and again, I can only take a lot of this stuff on face value, and I only push back if I believe there's a legitimate other side of the coin or I've got other information. But that once the advertisers went out and looked at what a 12-team playoff was going to look like with third place teams from the Big 12 and the ACC, Louisville, Utah, Kansas State, whomever, and then a group of five, a Tulane, Kansas State matchup, a Louisville, Utah matchup. They just thought that they could, and there were numbers given during this conversation, get more out of Penn State and Oklahoma, Michigan and Clemson, all the games being that type of brand name game.
Well, it works, it works these, when you have the 1 versus 16 or 2 versus 15, there isn't 2 versus 15s. It works in basketball. I know it's a different sport. I know that it's more dynamic and there's bigger chances for upsets in the big dance, but it does work. And why it works for the tournament is because you have even the smallest conferences in the country, 3-man Cinderella. And so they are invested. And then when they get knocked out in the first round or second round, they get, past the first round, then they're invested because they want to see what the team that beat them, it's just a chain reaction. And so the disenfranchisement of like I said, I wish we could have kicked a couple of the other fan bases out because two of the best fan bases of the Pac-12 no longer have a conference to go to. And it's just disgusting what happened to them. And that's going to happen to teams all across the country now, fans across the country. And you're going to be stuck with this product. Again, I'm not making a prediction. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. I'm just saying it's going to, this huge next step, if you're talking about it, I thought it was down the road a little ways. This right now is going to be a Rubicon that they're going to cross. And maybe I was hoping one day this whole thing about consolidating and regionality, people would miss the old days and maybe they might realign it back out. But if we do this, will any of these programs still be around? I mean, there's certain, for instance, Washington State was just hanging on the thread economically themselves. This is going to kill a program like Washington State. You looked at that, like Boise State just built that, state renovated or built a stadium. And then you have a school like Oregon State to put all that money into research. I mean, the investments these schools have made, and now all of a sudden, because we're going to change the way the game is now completely, who gets to play in the game now? Forget the conferences. Now it's like you guys are all overnight, they would almost be irrelevant. And I'd like to see, hopefully someone can tell me how I'm wrong, because I don't want that to happen.
One last point out of me about the playoff and playoff matchups potentially before we bring in Marty Leap from Penn State Rivals is that, we are going to have some bad looking games. The way it's set up currently, yes, is the group of 5, Tulane, Liberty, whomever they're going to be matching up against Michigan or Florida State or whomever in the first. Are there going to be some ugly games? Yes. Much like what we experienced in the NCAA basketball tournament with a bunch of 116 and 215 and 3-14 games. Most of them are ugly. However, I can't fathom the level of excitement, whether it's going to be the first year or it's going to take 5 years or it's going to take 10 years to get to this point, when there are people going crazy because it's midway through the fourth quarter and every group of 5 I think of just joined the Cincinnati, Central Florida, Tulane. We'll stay with Tulane. Tulane's leading Ohio State with 3 minutes left, 24-21, and people are losing their minds because they can't believe what they're watching. We won't have that. We will talk some Penn State football, though, here on our Big Ten Live show. We appreciate Marty Leap dropping by from Penn State Rivals. Marty, what's going on tonight?
Not too much, Mark. How are you doing?
Doing well. Good to see you. One of the deals that we have set up for this show is, of course, to get takes from across the Big Ten. So, hey, I got to tell you, I did the search for Penn State football to see anything going on here recently. I didn't come up with too much, but what's on your mind these days regarding whether that's recruiting, transfer portal on down the line?
Yeah, not a whole lot at the moment. I mean, things have kind of slowed down, but recruiting obviously always going on. They've had junior days each of the last 2 weekends, have another one coming up this weekend. Picked up their first, or I shouldn't say first, offensive line commit of the cycle and out of the junior day 2 weekends ago, and Owen Alicine. Their first true offensive lineman, though, because there's Brady O'Hara, who is listed as a tight end from North Catholic in Pittsburgh, who most likely will wind up an offensive tackle. But with Alicine, they get the first true offensive tackle commit of the cycle. Today was a busy day for James Franklin on the road. He had the helicopter out all over the region, visiting a lot of top targets. So just in the world of college football, where there truly never is an off season due to recruiting, and especially now with the transfer portal and things of that nature, it's just recruiting heavy right now.
Who's your backup quarterback going to be?
Bo Pabula, I would assume, unless something unforeseen happens. I think one thing with Andy Kotelnicki coming in to run the offense now, one thing he did a good job of at Kansas when Jalen Daniels was healthy was finding a way to incorporate both him and Jason Bean also. And I think Bean and Pabula are very similar players. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more 2 quarterback sets this year to throw a wrinkle into the offense. Give opposing defenses something else to have to worry about on film. And with Pabula, as we saw this year, I mean, while he has his limitations as a thrower, he is a great runner. He could be a great weapon in the red zone with that. So I think Bo will, again, barring something unforeseen, Bo will be the backup, and I think we will see him used a little bit more in the fall, just based off of Andy Kotelnicki's track record at Kansas. I think he'll find a way to try and incorporate him into the offense a little bit more.
Is there a stud quarterback that James Franklin and company are after for 2025?
They currently have a high 3-star Beckham Kritza in the class from Colorado. If you watch Kritza's film, the tools are there. It's effortless arm strength. Now the footwork needs some work. I think his delivery could use some work. His release point, his pocket presence. But those are a lot of things that with young quarterbacks need to work on. But they plan on being a 2-quarterback class. You come back into the region, and the 2 main targets are Matt Zollers from Springford High School in Pennsylvania. That was one of the players Franklin was out visiting today. His recruitment has really started to explode in recent weeks. Georgia has offered. He was down to Georgia for a visit, and Notre Dame has offered. So he's starting to emerge from just being a regional prospect to being one of the more sought-after quarterback recruits in the cycle. And there's also Malik Washington at Archbishop Spalding High School in Maryland, who they've recruited pretty heavily. It definitely seems at this point Zollers is kind of distancing himself from Washington in terms of their preference, in terms of their quarterback board. And I mean, part of that again was Zollers being an in-state kid. I will say with Zollers, obviously, anytime Georgia gets involved in a recruitment, you're in for a fight if it's a kid Georgia wants, and it seems like if they don't. Right now, Georgia's top quarterback target continues to be Juju Lewis. I mean, I don't know how that recruitment's going to shake out. Will he flip? Will he not? I'm sure. I was expecting the head shake, but would say, assuming he stays committed to USC, I think it seems Georgia would definitely be interested in pursuing Zollers pretty heavily. But Zollers comes from a very pro Penn State family. His grandfather has had season tickets for like 50 years or something like that. He's grown up going to games. So even if Georgia decides to get involved pretty heavily, which looks possible, you still feel pretty good there. I mean, is it like I said, he's a kid in your backyard. He's grown up going to games. His family's very pro Penn State. So I think Zollers is their best bet at getting that, quote unquote, like big time game changer type quarterback for 25. And he had really good junior film. As I said, he started to blow up the spring. If he continues this trajectory he's been on and Penn State does land him, from Drew Alar and then Ethan Grunkemeyer this past cycle, who wound up a top 100 recruit at some places in a consensus 4-star, and then Zollers, you'd be looking at 3 out of 4 cycles with landing, 3 of the best based on talent quarterbacks that James Franklin has landed. And, that can go a long way towards getting Penn State across that playoff hump finally.
I will let Tim mix it up with you here in just a second, but I got one other question since we're on the quarterback subject. And of course, Drew Aller, do you think that there are legitimate concerns coming from last season about whether he's going to be, of course, he did not have a disastrous season. He still threw 1 pick, right?
He wound up with 2 because he threw another one in the bowl game. But
okay.
Two interceptions across 13 games in your first year as a starter.
Sure.
I mean, that's impressive. I don't care how you spin it. That's impressive.
Yeah. Even if you say, oh, he's too conservative and they check down all the time, regardless. Yes, it's impressive. So I don't want to make too much of this, but I think there are a lot of people, and I will include myself in focusing on the 2 most important games and the 2 toughest defenses they faced. Well, we could include Iowa, but I'll look at Ohio State and Michigan, of course, that, yeah, he didn't look great, and he looked a little overwhelmed at times. So is there any, what you would consider legitimate concern that he's not going to turn out to be what people wanted him to be?
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you're going to have some concerns because you saw some of the areas he struggled this year. But at the same time, I mean, you mentioned the struggles against Michigan and Ohio State. And I remember watching the Ohio State game in particular, just pulling my hair out over the game plan. And then against Michigan, it was much of the same. And the day after the Michigan game, Mike Yurcich is fired. So, how much of that was the game plan? And I remember in James Franklin's post-game press conference after the loss against Michigan, he made a comment that I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was something along the lines of, hey, we discuss stuff all week in practice. Here's what we run. And then we get the game day and that's not what our game plan looks like. Retail was pretty clear. Mike Yurcich and the rest of the offensive coaches weren't on the same page. And, less than 24 hours later, Yurcich was relieved of his duties. So I am curious to see with Drew, really the biggest issue this year, in my opinion, with him was that lack of aggressiveness, pushing the ball down the field. He's got the arm talent to do it. He did a pretty good job of going through his reads. He did a pretty good job pre-snap, especially for a first-year starter, on identifying defenses, audibling, calling out blitzes, things of that nature. Now, sometimes he would get a little happy feet in the pocket, and sometimes he'd hold the ball too long. But again, how much of him holding the ball too long also stemmed to this receiver crew that, we've talked ad nauseum about on here. So I do think there's some concerns about, does he have that mindset of, the grip it and rip it, trust your arm, that sort of thing. But I also think if he gets better wide receiver play this year, which, Mark, we talked about it when I was on last week, you're already seeing the positive impacts of Julian Fleming in that room. Players are already raving about the leadership and the guidance he's providing that wide receiver room. And I know I mentioned it with you last week, where that allows you to bump Keandre Lambert-Smith to the slot, where he's much better suited. I think just those two things alone can really improve the wide receiver room. And one thing, too, with Andy Kotelnicki, one thing he did a tremendous job of with his offense at Kansas was building it around the strength of his players. And again, after Yurcich was fired, there was a comment by James Franklin about, we need to use guys at what they're best at, not what we want to use them as. And that is something Kotelnicki did a tremendous job of at Kansas. So I think getting him at the helm can help as well. And I will be curious, though, from a quarterback coaching standpoint. I don't think they've made it official, but it seems the new quarterback's coach is going to be Danny O'Brien. If that name sounds familiar, he was a starting quarterback in Maryland in the 2010s and then went to Wisconsin for a year. James Franklin was the offense coordinator at Maryland, and by all accounts, he's a rising star in the coaching industry. And I think a big reason why he's getting this promotion is because his time as a grad assistant is done, and Penn State doesn't want to lose him. And he's a guy that the quarterbacks really talk highly about. So now that he will kind of have the full reins of coaching these quarterbacks and working with them in terms of, pocket presence, footwork, stuff like that, I'll be curious to see the impact that makes. So I do think there's reasons to be somewhat concerned about Drew. And like you said, it's being concerned about reaching these expectations, right? If he would have came in as a mid to high 3-star the way Sean Clifford was and had that season, we're probably not even having this conversation. You're saying, man, look, he had a great year, first year starter, but when you come in as, 5-star by some services, arguably the number one overall player in the country, that brings a certain type of expectation. And, obviously those expectations weren't met last year, but I do wonder and do think a lot of that stemmed from a combination of the wide receiver room and the just conservativeness of Mike Yurcich, and in turn, Mike Yurcich not trusting the wide receiver room.
When you said grip it and rip it, the first thing I thought of was the most impressive moment that I can think of for me with Aller this past season was after he throws his first pick of his career and Indiana tied the game or took the lead. I don't remember. Tied the game. Yes. Which they should have went for it. And anyway, that's another story. Tom Allen, that's why he doesn't have a job, because it doesn't understand.
Tom Allen goes for it.
He has a job.
He might not be Penn State's defense coordinator.
He has a job.
Yes. Well, he doesn't understand the moment. You got to seize it at Happy Valley. But anyway, that he comes back out onto the field having thrown his first interception in his life at that level, and then he rips that missile down the sideline to win the game. So, well, Tim, I got to say that between you two, looking at Penn State and USC, for as much of a traditionalist and purist as I am, and I don't like this mixing of the conferences, these kind of games will be the ones where I'll be like, this is cool, because once this happened, I thought, of that matchup and this was certainly one of those that I was like, that's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I'll tell you what, Marty, I'm really happy it's not at Beaver Stadium, because I like the games that are played in California and not the ones that are played in Happy Valley, because in the mid-90s, the phrase woodshed came out a couple times. So I'm really happy that we are playing at home. But speaking of Tom Allen replacing Manny Diaz, what is he going to have as far as, you guys had a great defense last year. What are you guys losing, and what is Tom Allen going to have to work with?
Yeah, I'm going to be very curious with Tom Allen how this works, because he always had at Indiana. I mean, the overall statistics may not have looked great, but anyone who watched the Tom Allen defense, those defenses played hard. They were well coached. They were sound. And a lot of times the stats will look worse than they were, because in the fourth quarter, Indiana's offense just couldn't. They had nothing left, and the defense outgassed as a result. So I would be very curious to see a Tom Allen defense with this much talent, because I think he's always been a defensive coach who likes to be able to put his corners on an island and get aggressive. And I think at Penn State, that's going to be a lot easier to do because I have a lot more talent. Penn State does lose a decent amount off this defense. You lose your top 3 cornerbacks in Kalen King, Johnny Dixon, and Daquan Hardy. Obviously, everybody knows Chop Robinson. Deza Isaac, also a defensive end who's currently blowing up the Senior Bowl. And, once he's someone who's going to crush the combine and may sneak into the back end of the first round of the draft as well. But you at linebacker are going to be very good. Abdul Carter is, I think, going to be an absolute just beast in Tom Allen's defense. And even at defensive end, you lose at least 1, potentially 2 first-round picks, and you have a former 5-star and denied Dennis Sutton, who's probably on his way to being a first-round pick, stepping in ready to go. Amin Vanover, who honestly, each of the last 2 seasons would have been a starting defensive end on a lot of defenses in the Big Ten and was just buried in this room. And Zariah Fisher, who is a guy they're very high on from Aliquippa. And I mean, Aliquippa is one of the best high school programs, not just in Pennsylvania, but really in the country. So there's still a lot of talent there. And a cornerback, you're young, but there's some young guys in that room, Zion Tracy, Elliott Washington, Cam Miller, that they're extremely high on. And like we talked about last time I was on, Mark, you bring in A.J. Harris, who is one of the best cornerbacks in the transfer portal. You bring in Jalen Kimber, who's going to give you some good experience there. And nothing else, Terry Smith has proven to be one of the best cornerback coaches in the country in terms of development. So it's quickly become a position you just don't worry about, because as long as Coach Terry's here, they're going to figure it out. So I think this defense can be very good again. I think this defensive line can be very good. The fact that they were able to keep Devon Ellies and Hakeem Beamon, who both seem ready to go pro, and we're able to get them to come back for one more year, really solidifies DT. And like I said, you think of a Tom Allen defense, you always think, there was Michael McFadden. There's just always that linebacker who is just all over the field causing havoc. And I'm very excited to see Abdul Carter, who is probably the most athletically gifted player Tom Allen has ever coached, be able to play that role. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think Carter is going to be in line for a huge season.
Marty Leap, Penn State rivals, join him right there. You see the handle on X, and Marty does a phenomenal job. They're Penn State rivals. Marty, we always appreciate you stopping by, getting us set up on Penn State.
Absolutely. Hey, the only other thing I'm going to add on the Penn State USC talk, you said about your Glass Mountain Beaver Stadium. The first time they do play in Beaver Stadium, all I'm going to say is with those 2 iconic uniforms, that thing needs to be a whiteout, because that will just be college football at its absolute finest and just be a beautiful sight.
I already told my wife she better get all the money out of my hands, because I'm going to buy tickets to, I've already been at Ohio State. So I want tickets to at Penn State, at Wisconsin, and at Michigan. if I have to sell a child, I got 3 of them. I'll sell one of them because I'm going to those games. So I can't wait.
Great stuff. Thanks, Marty. Appreciate you being here.
Yep. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Good stuff from Marty Leap. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Ryan Winter dropping by. Sports Staff 503. Ryan, what's going on?
What up? How you guys doing?
Doing just
Up,
fine.
Ryan.
Is that golf weather back behind you?
We're golf weather. I'm golfing tomorrow.
Okay.
It's always golf weather, Mark.
Okay. I thought so. Just checking.
The ground.
Just checking.
How we doing, fellas?
We're doing well. Don't know if you've you've been on with us on the USC channel with Tim Prangley. Very nice.
Absolutely, Tim. What up, my guy?
That's up, man. Yeah, any weather, Mark, is golf weather. It's just something's a little more challenging when you get that 30-mile-an-hour gust from your right to left.
If
you're right. You gotta layer up. You gotta get the vest going and the hoodie and the beanie.
If that doesn't play with the swing?
Well, you gotta adjust. Golf's a creative game.
Okay.
just hit, Mark. You just got to keep it low. When it's windy, you just got to keep it low.
Hey, it's just like football. You got to play in tough weather, man. When USC goes out to Wisconsin, the Ducks are playing Wisconsin at the very end of the year, man. It's going to get wild over there. That's West Coasters. We don't really know what's going to happen at the end of the year with the Big Ten schedule.
You're going to be in. So the Ducks are in Madison in November or December.
Yeah, the last week, there's a bye week before the Husky. The Husky game is now the last game of the year with rivalry week. And Wisconsin's game right before the. Yeah, I know. It'd be a rough one.
I'll tell you what. Remember I said I'm going to Madison? I might not if it's at the last week of November, because not that I can't handle the cold weather, but I want to be able to enjoy the game if I'm going to go, you know?
Facts. Yeah, I heard you say you want to go to Madison. So do I. I just don't want to go at the end of November.
Yeah, I was thinking like late September, mid-October. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, there's golf out there too. I want to combo it. So,
well, Ryan, it sounds like the whole Big Ten thing is sunk in to a certain extent. You kind of soaked it up.
Yeah, I'm all in. In football, I'm all in. Basketball, I'm still 1 foot in the Pac-12 until we get through this Pac-12 conference championship game. Speaking of, your guys' SC, man, has been decimated by injuries. Too bad for you guys. You guys had a great squad coming in this year.
Yeah, it's been a rough run the last 5 weeks. They have 6 losses, but they losing that Collier, who's basically Mark should get mad for talking basketball. But actually,
no. March Madness, Mark. Everybody loves March Madness.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in March. When you guys are there and we're not, but you know, when we're scraping a hoping bubble team for the NIT, and you guys are like a 5 seed. We'll talk then.
Oh God, I hope we haven't made the turn in a couple of years. But wait, let's talk about football. I'm stoked for the Big Ten. Yes, I'm all in. I've already gone through and started looking at film of opponents. I'm looking at where to go, where to eat, what restaurants, what hotels, how to get around. It's crazy how to get around up in there. So we're not necessarily from up there, Mark. This is a new thing for us.
Oh, I know it. Maybe we'll run into each other here at some point. That would be cool. That would be cool. And your head coach is in for it as well. So that was kind of cool in that, he was one of the favorites at the top of that Alabama list, and he put that to rest in a hurry and did it with some style.
Marketing and Nike and Oregon, they all kind of seem to go together sometimes, when the thing comes together the right way. There's a lot of really good people at Oregon on the creative team. And that night that Nick Saban left, of course, we all were on doing live streams. Everybody who had a YouTube channel was on talking about that stuff. It was a huge shocker. And immediately Lanning's name was on there. And I kept saying I didn't think he was going to go. But a lot of people were saying, hey, he needs to come out and say this right away. And all the media people were saying, hey, there's no media availability until we get to, spring football or whatever. So it's going to be like another month. And so you're right. They did the right thing. They came out with the video right away. The way they did it was great, where they talked about, because this has been an ongoing thing all year. He's referenced it numerous times. And so they kind of spliced all those different quotes together. They showed him shaking hands with all the different fans, of course, and I'm, of course, right in that mix because I go to road games. I see those guys. And I love Dan Lanning, man. I'm all in. So he's all in. We're all in. That's what we were scared of the most, was being a stepping stone. We were scared of guys not being committed and not being wanting to see the future. And we had a couple guys come and go. And then we obviously saw that same thing happen with Washington. So it's a terrible situation when the coach leaves. It's just there's no way to shake. No two ways to shape it, man. It is what it is. Either the guy goes out on his own terms, like Saban, and you got to fill the spot, and it's still a question mark, or you're kicking the guy out. So it's a tough situation. We're stoked. We're stoked. It's all systems go. Everything's ready to rumble. The show goes on.
The thing with Oregon, different than Washington, is Washington basically lost everybody. The DeBoer knew he was losing everyone. Dan's been building this team that you guys are going to have this year. Again, I think it's going to be Ohio State and Oregon. It's going to be they're definitely the 2 most talented teams in the conference. They're going to be going head to head. And for Lanning to walk away from this team would have been pretty, I would think, for a coach, after he took the time to build this team together and on both lines. I think, secondary, I think it's going to be a really fixed secondary. I think it's going to be a solid defense. I think that would be a lot for him to do. Granted, it's the Alabama job, and what went into that, who got called, etc., whatever the story was, I think that made it more difficult for a guy like Dan Lanning than it would be for a Kalen DeBoer to walk away.
I agree. And I think that's everything you said there is completely correct. Kalen DeBoer knew exactly what he had. There wasn't much coming back left, and he hadn't recruited that well. That wasn't necessarily his thing, and Dan Lanning's quite the opposite. Dan Lanning is, a really good recruiter, and we'll see how good of a game coach he is down the stretch. But he's definitely a great recruiter, and the transfer portal is absolutely on fire. Transfer portal is kind of weird, It's kind of like AAU basketball. I coached basketball for years, and you get these super teams in AAU, and all the guys want to play together, and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer fast in the transfer portal. And so it's exciting to be a fan of a team and a part of a team, through the fan base, alumni, whatever, that is wanted, that is a team that people want to be a part of. Because, if you look in the Big Ten right now, like you're saying, outside of the kind of the blue bloods like USC, Michigan, which are the classics, you'll never have to worry about them. But, you're right. Ohio State is surging. Oregon's trying to be on that level. And we're always kind of looked at as little brother a little bit. We're trying to get on that level, trying to sustain it. And I think a guy like Lanning with his message is the right thing to do right now.
But you're not going to know what to do with yourself, Ryan, if Oregon becomes accepted on that level. You're not going to be able to play that underdog card anymore.
No, I'm comfortable with the green jacket on. If you want to be inviting me back to the Masters dinner, that's fine. I'm okay with being a blue blood all of a sudden. That's cool. If you want to invite Oregon in, I'm willing to accept that offer, Mark. I am no problem at all. And to be honest, behind closed doors, we've been saying this. I'm a part of the Oregon Club and all that sort of stuff. We talk with our AD, and Rob Mullen's the guy who really wants to try to get the best out of this university, and he wants the university to be looked at as one of the elite universities in the country. And a lot of the moves that he's made during his time set Oregon up to be able to even be in the Big Ten. When it first went down, when USC and UCLA went, I didn't think Oregon was going to go. I didn't think Oregon was valuable enough. And I thought that Washington would be, because of the academic prowess, the downtown Seattle, all the other sort of stuff, the glitz and glamour that they have. But Oregon's a very small school in a very remote state. It's not necessarily on the same level. Now, it has a good connection with Nike that's very organic, that's not forced, and that's great. It's not going anywhere. Even when Phil passed away, that's still not going anywhere because there's tons of Nike connections with Oregon. But I just think it's a really cool situation that Oregon got accepted to go to the Big Ten. I think it's going to go there. Now we see the merger thing happen with the Big Ten and the SEC, and it feels like Oregon's in a spot where they're going to survive.
The Bo Nix acquisition could not have worked out better. He became a true Duck, just embraced by the fan base, and obviously played his rear end off and was phenomenal. Now he has set a certain standard and became a bit of a hero there in the Northwest. And you bring in Dylan Gabriel, tremendous credentials at Central Florida, had a huge year at Oklahoma. He's put up big numbers. He's going to be one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of college football, just based on stats. But are there maybe too many expectations going to be placed on him to maintain that level of play?
It's hard to compare them all. Bo Nix had a great opportunity to come back that second year, and coming back the second year really solidified his kind of place in Oregon history comparatively. Dylan Gabriel's going to have just 1 year. So the best kind of comp you can do with him is kind of a guy like maybe Vernon Adams or something, when Oregon had just a one-off guy. He's going to have just the 1 year. Yeah, you're right. Very prolific guy. Could be very good in this offense. But, with Bo, it was a unique sort of situation because there was so much change. There was so much turnover at that point in time that the quarterback coming in it was kind of seamless with all the rest of that change. We'll see how it is now that we're starting this transfer portal time, because the transfer portal at the quarterback is kind of a unique deal. I'm sure you guys have talked about it numerous times where, if you get the guy with 2 years versus the guy with 3 years versus the guy with 1 year, what that does to the rest of the room and how it works with recruiting and everything else. And this year, Oregon kind of pulled off a coup a little bit because they pulled Dante Moore and Dylan Gabriel in the transfer portal, and they got two of the best transfer portal quarterbacks, with the younger one saying he wanted to sit on the bench for a year and develop. So again, I think that's the best of both worlds right now. If you're going through the transfer portal, you better stack up a couple in there, because your quarterback room can get lean pretty quick. And we all know this is a game where you're one play away from having the next guy up.
You're on mute, Tim.
I want to see Dante Moore become a multimillionaire and never throw a pass in college football, and then be the next Matt Castle and go off the NFL. And I want to have a lucrative, career, but I wanted that guy just to sit back, do some clipboard talk, make millions, and then just and just lap his way to the NFL, because he does have the NFL ability. I'm curious. I'm curious who you think is going to battle for that job. Next year it's gonna be weird to see who comes in, but it could truly happen. If someone comes in, unseats him, he might just be the most well-paid student of all time. So.
You're right. That's a pretty good gig. The backup Q is a pretty sweet gig. Clean jersey every week, and sometimes you got to be. Maybe the headset gets a little uncomfortable sometimes. That's maybe the only thing. But other than that, it's a pretty good gig. I mean, but yeah, you're right. Dante Moore, the best plays he's made so far in his career have been in the All-Star games during his senior year. He did great at that game in San Antonio, and didn't have a great run at UCLA, and the UCLA situation just didn't work out. I don't know what the heck was going on with that defense or the offense last year. The defense was the only thing they were hanging on with, and it was a very strange offense, and he didn't really fit. He wanted to go to Oregon originally. It felt like they just offered him more money at the end of the day, and the classic NIL sort of situation, last-minute flip. And so he comes to Oregon. I think he's going to be comfortable at Oregon, and yeah, I mean, he might play this year. You never know when it comes to injuries, but you're right. He could find himself in a position where he could get to the NFL and never even play. We had a guy like that at Oregon one year where he sat behind Joey Harrington. He started, but he was a year older than Joey. When Joey started, he sat on the bench and still got drafted in the NFL. Didn't even play his senior year.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. I know it's not going to happen. To answer your the Moore question, Dante was kind of forced into a role because they didn't have a quarterback at UCLA. He wasn't ready to be a quarterback at UCLA. He just kind of got thrown out there unfairly to him, because even talented quarterbacks, sometimes they just need that year to catch up to college speed. Right. And I think that's what happened to him. I think he'll be fine in his career. My comment about him not starting is just kind of more of a tongue-in-cheek thing than anything else. And then going back to I always hear they change it every 6 months. Is it Drew Aller or Drew Allar? Which one is it for Penn State? Is Drew Aller?
Drew Aller is what I've heard.
Yeah, I go with Aller. I call him Drew Aller.
Tomato. Okay. Wait. That guy, maybe. Yeah. That guy at Penn State. What people got to realize also is that was his first year start. Again, at every position, usually guys, offensive tackle, cornerback, quarterback, the speed of playing a whole season, you just kind of get in your feel. Some guys are insane. They can just go out there as freshmen and kick ass. But that jump that they're going to make from that first year, not necessarily freshman to sophomore, but your first starting year to your second starting year is a massive jump. And so I think that you need to get Dante in there and get his feet wet this year, and hopefully the schedule will allow for that.
I completely agree. And I think there's a lot of people who are in these kids' ears when they're in high school saying that they're going to be the next one. They're going to be the one. They're going to be one. And they want to go to these schools where they can get playing time, when in reality, they look at it like the NFL draft. The guys that go to a team that's already solid, that already has a good offensive line, that has a good quarterback in front of them, those are the guys that have the 20-year, 15-year career. The guys that go to the bad team with a bad offensive line and they get playing time right away, oftentimes they're out of the league in 3 years with a knee injury. And, you look at these guys, in high school, and everybody's the man in high school. Like you said, you go to college, it's another level. And the game happens so fast. There's so much processing for the quarterback. There's so much pressure on the quarterback. And you got to make plays. And if you don't make plays, there's another guy who's trying to do the exact same thing as you're doing right there. And they stack them up in there and they fight the competition. And it's cutthroat. So there's a lot of pressure on these guys. And not everybody's made out to be that guy. And it's easy in high school. You are the man in high school. No one questions you in high school. And then you get to the All-Star games, and it's kind of fun because it's an exhibition. Nobody knows anybody. And you sling it around like it's 7-on-7. All of a sudden, you look like you're the man. And people, I've always kind of hit the brakes on recruiting. I've always been a guy that wants the guys to get in. Let's see them in the uniform. Let's see them produce here before I kind of get the judgment call on who they are. And everybody else, I feel like, just loves recruiting so much. Oh, this guy's going to change the game. This guy might not even see the field, buddy. Yeah, he's great in high school. He might not even see the field here. So, or he might transfer out of here. He fall in love with these guys. So, again, I think the quarterback position is such a unique one. The fact that they pulled this thing this year was a complete coup. It's so rare to try to get two guys and have one guy in the transfer portal even be willing to sit. That's such a rarity in general. Most of these transfer quarterbacks are looking for more playing time, not less. So to have a guy who's that talented actually request to be on the bench is quite unreal.
Ryan, since you've got the obvious connection there with UCLA, you're going to play our UCLA resident expert right now because we got nobody else to go to. Obviously, Chip's there, and he's coming into the Big Ten as well. What do you think the deal is with him? He's put 3 decent seasons together, not great seasons. I really thought that the 22 team had a chance to do something really good. They were that close. And now we see he's interviewing for NFL offensive coordinator positions. And we know he hates recruiting. So on top of that, now he's got to recruit transfer portal players and try to recruit his own locker room to keep them home. Is he just kind of filling a spot now?
It feels like it. It feels like he's cashed checks since he left Oregon. I feel like he's been spinning his wheels since he left Oregon. Oregon was the space where he was innovative. He kind of changed the game a little bit. You know, it's funny about Chip. You know, everybody thought he was such a mad scientist. He just went back into the history books. He pulled out the old Carlisle Indians playbook. He did the stuff Pop Warner was doing, man. He dusted off all those old books, and man, he went to work on that stuff. And they ran the ball in Oregon when Chip and it was here at Oregon. We were like the second best running team in the country outside of a team that only runs the ball, right? You always have those outliers, but we were like the only normal regular team that was in that list. It was just crazy running the ball. And now he's gone to a balance thing. He runs a pro style. His guys underneath center sometimes. I mean, I just don't know. The magic of Chip Kelly quite isn't there. The whole shtick that he had before, it felt like it got burned. He went to the NFL. It didn't work. He learned a bunch of new stuff in the NFL that was basically just standard approach that he already knew anyway. It's not like these guys don't know how to coach football. And he just tried to do it a different way. And now I feel like, yeah, he's just been spinning his wheels. And he's just been collecting checks. And he's not really that into it. He's a funny guy. I mean, I've met him numerous times when he was the coach here. And he seems just very aloof. He's always got the kind of the hands kind of crossed. He's, the only guy I can really compare him to is these guys. They're just weirdo coaches like Belichick and stuff. They don't get along with normal people. They don't do the regular stuff normal people do. And he doesn't think the same way. So I'm assuming he wants to go to the NFL and just sit in a room and draw plays up and milk that thing and bounce around there for another 5 or 6 years or whatever. Not need to be a head coach, not need to have the pressure of all that sort of stuff, not carry a record around with him, not have to recruit, not have to glad and shake hands, kiss babies, all that sort of stuff, which he does not like to do, or talk to boosters or alumni. He also does not like to do that. He does not like to work the room at all. So, yeah, I think he's wanted to be in the NFL since he was in the NFL, and he only came back to college because that was the better gig that he was offered. And he's collected millions since he's been at UCLA.
Cool. Ryan, appreciate you being here. Tim, you got anything else for Ryan?
No, that's it. I mean, as far as the Chip for me, it's just I think he was a great innovator. He was out ahead of the curve, and then I just think the game and the rules caught up to him. That's
Totally.
really. But I mean, one thing you could always rely on for Chip is that no matter what, he was going to game plan. I think the guy is probably one of the best offensive minds, game planning, looking at a defense that there is out there. I'm not sure how you could try to be a college. I mean, the sad thing is maybe he should hang on for another 5 years when these guys are all on salary and you don't have to recruit anymore. And it's just about, oh, let me write a check, and we'll get you, and you're drafting people or whatever it's going to be. There's a salary cap or there's collective bargaining, whatever's going to happen to the sport. Then Chip's right there. And then then he'll be coming back. But right now I'm with you. You can't win if you don't recruit.
Yeah, I think he's content. He's getting older. He's got a lot of money in the bank. He's very content. He's just a weird guy. I mean, if you know him and have been around him in any way, shape, or form, you can kind of see his personality is such that he's just going to walk away at some point. People are going to be like, where did he go? Like, you left this? Like, yeah, just on to the next one. But I don't think that's the case for us. I think we got a guy, Dan Lanning, who's young, energetic. This is his first opportunity. Oregon gave him his first shot. I think he's going to be very loyal to Oregon because of that. I think he's going to be a guy to look out for in the future. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's going anywhere. That video was the best. He said, if you're worried about your coach leaving, come play for us. That took balls. I'm telling you, that was a ballsy statement, man. So, again, the modern football game has changed. A lot of it's now through social media and what you can do with video and all that sort of stuff. It's very different than Bear Bryant's days, right?
Oregon, it has a group of probably as far as the staff, one of the best recruiting staffs there is out there. Clearly, your NIL program you guys have going there is so well organized. Phil Knight, they're all Nike executive, not executive, but Nike, whatever. They work for Nike at high level, so it's very well organized. It was one of the first hit the ground running. Clearly, your guys' recruiting classes for the past X amount of years has shown that. And so the only thing that's going to slow down Oregon at this point again is if other teams catch up, because they are kind of leading the way. And yet, the one thing also is a lot of SC fans are going, oh, yeah, okay, wait, hold on. So Florida State and they're going to get Texas A&M, then they're going to get Tennessee. Now they're coming after Oregon. But the thing I'll tell you right now about Oregon, I think they are pushing the boundaries of what you can do, but I think they're smart enough and organized enough that they're not going to do something stupid like Tennessee is saying, oh, well, we'll just sue you in court. Try to come at us.
Yeah, I think, you said about the Nike execs, the big NIL collective is called Division Street for Oregon, and it was set up by ex-Nike execs, guys who had retired and who were Oregon alums in connection with Oregon. And they set it up in a way where they worked directly with the NCAA to make sure the compliance and everything, officers, everything was on board. But yeah, it's set up in a way to be successful and to be successful without drawing a lot of attention or without being the kind of a shady side of it that people don't want. I think that's the problem with NIL is that there's such a negative connotation with it. If you do the wrong way, you're going to get a really bad kind of reputation with it. And I think that can carry a lot of weight. We've seen it with the, Jaden Rashada, let's say. Remember when he went to Florida and then they didn't give him the money or whatever, and then he left and went to Arizona State. Those kind of things I think are going to be more. There are going to be more of those in the future, and you haven't heard any of that stuff with Oregon. All the kids at Oregon have said, and the families at Oregon have all said, it's been very good for us. It's working very well for us. Because again, most of these student athletes that we're talking about, their families do not come from very much. We're talking about serious money for some of these people. Mm-hmm. And it's not like these kids are all driving Ferraris or something. No way, shape, or form. Most of all this stuff is going back home to mom, and it's being doled out that way, or it's being put into bank accounts for them for later on. Yeah, everybody tries to go out and get the chain. Everybody loves to get the chain with the name on it or number or whatever. But after the first couple checks go, it feels like these NIL packages are helping kids out in college when they need it. It's also giving people an opportunity to have money for the first time before they go to the NFL. And that's a big deal. People talk about how the money management is so bad in the pros. Everybody comes out broke. And so this now gives them an opportunity to manage some money before they get into that pro level. And I think it's all positive. I know there's some negative to it, but there already was negative. People were already handing out the bag for years, and it was already shady. So now it feels like it's a little bit more above board, and you can trust it a little bit more. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate y'all. I am always available, Mark. You know me. I'm always down.
If we can count on anybody to put a positive spin on something and still tell the truth and still be real about it, it's Ryan. Sports Chat 503, we get a quick slice from Ryan here, but for the full dose, Sports Chat 503 right here on YouTube. Ryan, definitely. You're awesome.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great one.
Dang, I was going to mess with Ryan and say that Dante came in 2022, but Phil lost his checkbook, so he went to UCLA. But then Phil Knight found his wallet, and he came back. Ryan, you can still hear me back there. But that's what you need to do in NIL. There's a lot of teams that are just not getting up to speed, not treating the professional level that other schools are doing it. There's schools that are doing it the proper way. And again, pushing the envelope, because it's not exactly delineated, and I don't think that the NCAA has much to come at or enforcement. But when you go just crazy and you do ridiculous things, like we're probably going to hear the reasons why, because the NCAA hasn't been doing anything. So for the NCAA to come out and come after schools, they did something pretty ridiculous. And so what I'm saying is there are schools that kind of pushed out limits of the whole inducement thing, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's also schools that are blatantly just paying kids to come to their school. And those are the ones that are going to get burned through this whole thing. Well, attempt to get burned and then hide behind their own state legislation and hide by their own state AGs. That's what's going to happen.
Folks, we still have time to take calls here. 888-997-4539. Talk to me, talk to Tim. Tell us how good your team's going to be this year. Whatever's on your mind concerning the Big Ten, whether that's the serious NIL transfer portal, realignment business, or you just want to talk some ball. Either way, 888-997-4539. As soon as Ohio State gets an offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien, there's talk that he's going to be one of the top candidates for the Boston College job that was left open by Jeff Hafley going to the NFL to Green Bay. Also, Justin Fry, the Ohio State offensive line coach, but most notably, again, O'Brien would be a big upgrade and certainly would be favored over Fry if he wants to take off for Boston College.
It's certainly the timing would not be good with spring ball just starting up in a little bit for Ohio State. And that's the problem with these late for everybody. If you don't get on that first round of the coaches and coordinator carousel, you get left waiting. It's like that game of musical chairs, Mark. You know what I mean? Whereas although it's more dynamic because, like you said, now another job comes open and that's got to be filled. So it's just a shuffling around that's happening. But unfortunately, as you get farther and farther into the game, there's not as many, I guess, seats available, and that's where things happen bad.
Next year, we have a January 20th national championship date, 12 days later than this year. This thing's going to get pushed even further down the line.
I tell you, it's going to be now we're going to start mirroring the NFL a season as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing that just doesn't have the right feel to it. It's supposed to be New Year's Day and just after, and January 20th. Hey, I love college football, but
they're probably if they're smart, what they would do is, and now you're saying that, why don't they pull it? If anything, they should pull it forward. Although I'll tell you what, August at the Coliseum is already late. August is already hot enough. I'm not sure if I want to be in there in the dog day. I mean, right in the middle of summer would be terrible. But if you're going to do it, you don't want to go up against the NFL playoffs. You don't want to go up against the Super. Start pushing it back and getting towards February. Then you're going to start running into playoffs and interest will wane. Whereas if you maybe pull it forward, bring it back to those games that are closer to that traditional New Year's Day, maybe that might be your answer.
And for anybody, what's that, Tim?
No, go ahead.
And for anybody out there that's saying, well, they're obviously not going to play the games against NFL games, that's not the point. They're, of course, not going to compete with the NFL head-to-head, but it takes attention away from the sport. Instead of people talking about college football playoff games and national championship games, there's four NFL playoff games on Sunday. And in terms of national exposure, the ESPNs and Fox Sports, all the people invested in more so than just broadcasting the games, keeping that news cycle churning. Believe me, for as much as some of you love college football and you want to ignore the NFL and say, it's really not that no, it is that popular that it just rules the whole deal.
Yeah. Nothing like it. Well, we're not getting any calls. It looks like the hunger strike continues.
Yeah, so next week, I'm going to be locked and loaded with a lot of controversial things to say that is just going to piss people off, drive them to some level of angst and insanity to where they will have to call.
I'm thinking maybe next week we just talk about Indiana, Minnesota, Purdue, Northwestern. We'll avoid schools that have peninsulas in their state. Let's do that. and then we'll see. We'll go from there.
We're gonna do 2 hours on Purdue.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing. Oh, yeah, we got a call. Listen, I got, you know what? I'm gonna be a little bit distant 'cause I'm trying to set up
Yes,
the
you
SC
do what
Collins
you
show.
need to do.
But we got Will here. So let's honor Will calling in.
Absolutely.
Will, how you doing? Thanks for calling in.
Hey guys, got to talk to two of my favorite college football fans.
Look at that.
Thanks for taking my call. What do you guys? Now, Mark? Who would you go after first if you're BC? I mean, I'm just very curious on who they're gonna get. Like I thought Bob Chesney, who went to James Madison, would be my first pick, but apparently you turned it down. So I'm just curious who you think they would go after.
I'm lost here for a second. I'm sorry, Will. Who's going to go after who is a DC? What job are we talking about?
Who do you think will go to who do you think will go BC will go after?
Oh, BC. Did they join the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Okay. Boston College.
I thought I heard it before. Yeah, I heard it before. You guys were talking about it. But I can tell you. I'll fire off a Big Ten question.
When this game is played, meaning the coaching carousel game, I'm the worst at it if I don't stop and think about it. So when people hit me up, and I certainly wasn't prepared to talk about the Boston College job. And I just brought up Bill O'Brien and Justin Fry because obviously of the Big Ten connection. That's the only reason I brought those two names up.
Okay.
But man, if Boston College can hire Bill O'Brien, oh my word.
Yeah, that'll be a homer.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Now, I could certainly pull up a list here and tell you who I would hire in what order. I don't know how many people have been dropping Boston College coaching candidates list. I'm sure somebody has. Oh. There are a few people out there that care.
Yeah. Sorry. I know this isn't when the crowd.
Hey, listen, Will, you called in, and this is a call-in show. So if you want to join us, you can talk about whatever you like.
Here's a list for you, Will. This is coming from BC Interruption on SB Nation. Brian Flores, defensive coordinator, Vikings. Al Washington, D-line and defensive run game coordinator, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Rob Chudzinski, the assistant head coach for offense at BC. Scott Loeffler, head coach of Bowling Green, formerly of Syracuse. Dan Mullen, Florida, Mississippi State, of course. Liam Cohen, who was Kentucky's offensive coordinator 3 years ago, went to coach offense for the Rams for 1 year, went back to Kentucky, actually made a comment the other day that because there was angst about him, okay, there's NFL jobs open. You left us once just 2 years ago. Are you going to leave us again? No, I'm not. But those are always famous last words. Again, Billy O'Brien, as they state here, call him Billy O'Brien. Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel? No. He can do better than that. I don't see Mike Vrabel taking the Boston College job. Jason Candle, the head coach at Toledo. That'd be a nice little move up for him. I could see that happening. He's a good coach. Yes. He's the most realistic and the best option I see on that list. That would be my guy.
I agree.
There you go. I got around to answering your question.
Sorry.
We have filled the BC head coaching spot.
So who all, I guess, besides who's your pick for besides like USC, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon? Who do you think is going to be the best out of that next tier in the Big Ten this season? Who do you guys pick?
I tend to default to Iowa, but I'm a big believer in Luke Fickell and actually having an offense that can get first downs. So, yeah, I tend to like Mike Locksley's doing a nice job at Maryland. Of course, he lost his quarterback. He's probably going to go with Billy Edwards as being the starter, although they've got a second quarterback. I'm trying to think who that is that will push him a little bit.
State. He was from NC State.
Oh,
He's from NC State.
they picked up MJ Morris.
Yeah, MJ Morris. Yeah.
He went to Maryland. Did I forget that?
Yep. I believe so.
Okay, I love Maryland's quarterbacking situation. I love those two guys competing against each other. That's going to be a heck of a battle. MJ Morris has some talent. They're pretty similar quarterbacks, so it's not like pocket passer versus runner kind of deal. But yeah, Maryland's an interesting team because Locksley's done a nice job recruiting. They were recruiting well before him. He's been recruiting better in the trenches, so they've been holding up better against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State the last couple of years, although Penn State pretty much ripped them this past year. But out of those three, I'm going to give the lean to Wisconsin.
Me too. You know why? 2 words. Alex Grinch. Alex Grinch is the new safeties coach at
of course
for the Badgers. And the man is magic. You wait, you watch this season. This is the year it all comes together for him.
Wisconsin is going to be producing the Jim Thorpe Award winner because of Alex Grinch. Go ahead, Will.
Do you think he did a good job at Ohio State as the safeties coach? He was the safeties coach for a year, correct?
He was the co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and safety. Do you think
he was there? His year was 2018, I believe.
Was he actually, Mark? Was he actually the coach, or was it just was that just a title they brought to him to bring him on board? He was actually calling plays?
No, that's just an actual title. Greg Schiano was running the defense.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, he did a heck of a job at Washington State. That's what set him up for a job like Ohio State, is because he walked into a room where they were throwing out number 120 defenses in the country. And man, they, for taking a bunch of 2-star even and 3-star athletes and turning in like top 40, 45 defenses.
You know, they had, I'm a butcher's name. I forget it. But they had like an Aaron Donald type interior defensive lineman. He might have even been a zero tech that was just undersized ish, but like an Aaron Donald, just like a little Hulk, right? And Hercules, what's his name? Maafa, I want to say. I can't remember. But he was a difference maker. And I've always wondered how much of that defense was just that disruption. And then obviously you can't make a whole defense around one guy, but he was absolutely a terror on the defensive line.
Yes, Hercules Mataafa.
Yeah, that guy.
22 and a half tackles for loss.
That guy was absolutely obviously a difference maker. And
I do remember him.
Yeah.
Their 2017 team went 9-4, and they were, I don't have their defensive ranking here, but anyway, they went 9-4. I think that's a team that lost to Minnesota in the Holiday Bowl. But man, yeah, for an interior guy to rack up 23 tackles for loss, I do remember him.
Yeah, he just, again, like an Aaron Donald type. He was just so strong, just so incredibly strong hands, burst, just disruptor. By the way, really quickly, I know it's way off subject, but it's Carl Weather, but absolutely no name. R.I.P. Carl Weather. If you're like my generation, my age, you grew up with Rocky movies. Carl Weather, man, is and I didn't know this. He played football at he was an Aztec University of San Diego State University.
I knew he played college football. I didn't know where.
Yeah.
So Carl Weathers has passed away.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Living in America, the Rocky scenes, of course. Yeah. That's
he was in what's the Schwarzenegger movie too? He was in Commando, right? Was he in Commando?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're all getting old. He was 52, 76 years old. I don't think about Carl Weathers being 76 years old. Yeah.
Oh, oh,
Hmm.
was it? It was Predator. Yeah, you're right. Dropped him into a meat grinder. That's right. You got it.
Yeah, I'm not a big movie guy, but of course I watched all the Rockies a zillion times. So, yeah, he would have been the first Rocky was 76. So he was 28 at that point. Wow. Time's moving on.
I get Commando and Predator mixed up. You guys come on. They're both in South American jungles with fighting going on, so it gets confusing. Yeah. Well, listen, Mark, I have to get out of here because I got the other show starting in 10 minutes, and I still haven't put the thumbnail up. And I mean, we're well behind. I walked in the door.
We're going to send everyone your way, Tim. Appreciate you being here, manning the phones.
All right. Thanks, you. Man. Oh wait, if I leave, that takes Will with me. Will, anything else?
It's not a big deal.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Will.
See you, Tim. See you, Will.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
Thanks, man. David bringing us the news of the day. Unfortunately, Carl Weathers passed away in Los Angeles. Okay, we're going to finish on a more upbeat note than that. But, David, we do appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Super chat. Todd coming in with this one. Thank you for the contribution. Not public, but what do you think it takes to be a top 10 team in NIL? 10, 15, 20 million, just curious. Todd, I got to tell you that if you check out the live stream that we presented last night, that exact topic was brought up and was part of the presentation. And I don't remember, but there was a bell curve for both the group of five and for the power five, and maybe even the high-end power five in terms of a bell curve. Bell curve meaning let's say if we take the power five, that the bulk of the power five, the 75 to 80% in the middle, are spending, and I don't remember what that figure is. And of course it's estimated, but it's also a pretty close estimate because I do think we have some numbers to work with. And I do understand, and I truly believe, because the people I trust that know what they're talking about say tons of these numbers are inflated. But yeah, I don't want to quote a figure because I don't remember where that bell curve was sitting. I want to say on the high end, it was at the very tip of the power five. It was in the, close to 20 million, but the bulk of the power five was living in the 6 to 9 million range, somewhere in there. And then there were still schools at the bottom of the power five in regards to NIL spending that were more in the 3 to 4 or 5 million, something like that. So thank you for the question. Appreciate that. So here is the deal at the Voice of College Football. Again, please check out the coaching comparison we made between the NFL and college football coaches. Interesting video. Want to hear what you have to say about that. Also, I posted a video today looking at this advisory board that's been crafted by the SEC and the Big Ten and what that means, what that is telling us between the lines. Also, don't forget our matchup series. You pick the matchup. You pick the time frame, and I will line up the two schools in terms of winning percentage, conference winning percentage, conference championships, national championship, All-Americans, draft picks, first rounders, top 5, top 10, top 25 finishes, all of it. So again, you give me the matchups and the time frame, and I will match up the two schools you would like to see compared during that time. I don't care if it's the last 3 years, the last 10 years, the last 100 years, whatever the time frame, we will take it on. We've got SEC and Big 12 channels. Please check them out. And basically, here's the deal, is that if you enjoy SEC and Big 12 football, of course, we want you to check out the SEC and the Big 12 channels. The links are in the description section. But hear me out on this. If you just enjoy what we do here at the Voice of College Football, even if you could care less about the Big 12 or the SEC, please push us to 1,000 subs. So please subscribe on the SEC and the Big 12 channels, even if you could care less, couldn't care less. People always screw that up, including myself. Even if you couldn't care less about the Big 12 or the SEC, please subscribe. Thank you for that. And for now, I am going to go make some more content. We will do that all the time. We will be back here at some point, whether that's live or on video throughout the day on Saturday. And also keep in mind that you can just keep our little chat here together. Just move it on over to the USC channel. The USC call-in show is starting just about right now. I was kind of wondering whether I should stay on here for a few minutes because I threw out an invite. Let me check on this to our Florida State folks that we do our Florida State show with, because I said, hey, I want your take on the Big Ten show, because shoot, that could be the next round. It could be Florida State and fill in the blank. What, Miami, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, North Carolina? The Big Ten would love for it to be Florida State and Notre Dame, but they could be the next round here. And we could be talking Florida State football here on the Big Ten Live Show. So bring a friend, bring 10, bring 20, and we will be back here next Friday. And again, I'm kind of weighing, should I stay on here? Do we have a Florida State folks? Any of those people jumping on here? Let's see. I'm going to send out the link. And so we will possibly have a guest here in just a second. In the meantime, I will take your questions. Where is our... There we are. We will check out the chat. Be patient. Give me just a second. We're losing people as I sit here and type and do all these other things. So that may not happen. Yes, Will. We need a commissioner of college football, either a commissioner or governing body. That's why the NFL thrives. That's why professional sports thrive, because they're not sabotaging themselves. The sport is sabotaging itself in terms of, it's always been in regards to scheduling, distribution of money, even the NCAA, and we can pick on the NCAA all night, and it's warranted and justified, but beyond the stupidity of the NCAA, even the way it operates and is kind of pushed into operation, it's not governing the sport and not even disciplining accurately, properly, or in an equitable fashion. And now we've got bigger issues with the NIL and the transfer portal. And yes, governing body. And that reminds me of another topic to hit on here in the next few days would be what I would do with NIL. I have talked about this a number of times when I've been asked, and it's all over live streams of how I would attack NIL myself. and it's not a perfect fix. I don't think it's ever going to be in a place where everybody just thinks it's phenomenal and works for everyone, but it can be tackled much better. So there are some things that need to be done there. Yes, college football needs a commissioner. All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And once again, we will be here throughout the day on Saturday, whether that's live or on video. And I got so many content ideas coming up. But again, if you want a matchup sized up, give me the matchup, give me the time frame, and we will knock it out. I'm going to deliver my best first-year head coaches. You got Matt Rule, Luke Fickell, Ryan Walters, Deion Sanders, David Braun, ding, 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 ding. Jeff Brom, he's up there. Did a great job with Louisville. We also posted our coaching hires list, 1 through 11. Best coaching hires, ranked those 1 through 11. Now, from last season, down the list, Scott Satterfield, horrendous. Right, folks, appreciate you being here, the Voice of College Football, and we are going to do a state of the Voice of College Football here the next month or so. We would usually do that now, but there are reasons why we are going to wait. And we do have some announcements coming up concerning channels and expansion. So that's exciting. That is exciting. I want to personally thank, in particular, John D'Adamo. Does a phenomenal job on the Michigan channel. Join him Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. He's doing a bang-up job with the Michigan channel in particular. And, of course, he's got the Ocho here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, talking Big Ten football with all of you. I would like to launch an SEC show. Again, I need to let a few other things kind of push out of the way and clear some time and some room and some space in life, and we will do that. And yes, folks, appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend. We will see you soon. Most of us are on the internet pretty much all the time. It's fun. You get to socialize, you get entertained, and in this day and age, it's pretty much necessary. And even if you're one of those people that's not on the internet all the time, you know what is? Your personal information. And there are people out there trying to hack you all the time. They want your email address, they want your phone number, they want your place of employment, and they want to do bad things with it. There's also fairly legitimate corporations and companies that want your information. They want it for marketing purposes. They're going to buy it. They're going to sell it. They're going to trade it. At the very least, it's annoying to you. It's a nuisance. It's aggravating. Your email gets cluttered up with spam email. You get robocalls all the time. That's at the very least. At the worst, it's a threat to your family, to your friends, to your personal information, to your banking, to your finances, to your security, to your safety, to your identity. It can be pretty serious. This video is sponsored by Aura. I got hacked and it was pretty obvious. This was about 8 or 9 months ago, and there were red flags all over the place. And I didn't exactly know what to do, but I knew I needed to do something quickly. I mean quickly. I researched 8, 10, or 12 companies Immediately, I went all over the place. I asked people. I was online looking for the best company that could serve my needs and secure my information. You know who I found? Aura. And I'm glad I did. It was amazing. I contacted them. They got right back to me immediately. Their customer support is phenomenal. Their customer service is first rate, friendly. They are detailed. They know what they're doing, and they do it right, and they will protect you. In addition to everything I just mentioned, they've got a password keeping service. They keep your credit score. They notify you anytime there's a possible data breach. This has happened to me a number of times. I'm getting notifications all the time when there's a possible compromise to my credit score or anything that I don't want. They've got a VPN that will allow you to browse the internet anonymously. It's amazing. And again, customer service support available 24/7. Click the link in the description section below and get 2 free weeks of Aura. Protect your finances, protect your information, protect your privacy, protect your identity. I did, and I'm glad I did. Aura, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and now for my Voice of College Football community.